The battle of the two best teams in the NBA take it on Thursday night. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Full Court Slash, your stop for NBA bets, leans, and just talking about good old basketball here. Be sure to hit like and subscribe while you're here. We got plenty to talk about. But first, Billy, we got to dive in to the Cavaliers and the Thunder. This is going to be a great matchup. I'm really excited for this. I got to hear your take on where you're leaning for this game because there's plenty to go into it. The Cavaliers 14-3 on the road this season because they've just been fantastic all around. Only 5 losses on the year, and they're 9-1 in their last 10. Actually, both teams 9-1 in their last 10. OKC's only loss in that last 10 games, well, it's to these Cavaliers. They won that last contest 129-122. I got my handy dandy notebook right here. Took down some nice stats for this one because it's just plenty to dig into. Donovan Mitchell, though, this is what I like about this one, and I'm curious to see if he's even in your props for this game. But Donovan Mitchell in that game against OKC wasn't very good. He only had 11 points. He was 3 for 16 from field goal range. So you have to expect, even though the Cavaliers won this game, their best player, Donovan Mitchell, wasn't on, which was actually really good. Jarrett Mitchell was actually their best player at 25 points and 11 rebounds in 32 minutes in this one. Can the Cavaliers go 2 in a row against the OKC Thunder? That's my biggest question here because it's very hard in these short series, Billy, to win multiple games, especially some of the best teams in the league. What's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, good morning, sir.
That's true. Good morning. I should have started with that.
Yeah, don't be an ass, Christian. Tell me good morning. Tell me I look pretty. Listen, you know how yesterday you asked me if was it yesterday? I can't remember. I've slept since then. You remember you asked me though, is anybody good enough to beat the Cavaliers? You know, we were talking about in the East, and of course I, like a schmuck, said Boston, right?
Yeah, and then they lost to the Raptors, right? Okay, go ahead.
Listen, we're not talking about that. Is that on the slate? Is that on today's slate, Christian? I don't think it is. But to reel it back in here, everything that I think about the Cleveland Cavaliers for the East is what I think about the OKC Thunder in the West. And I'm just going to tell you right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is about to show Cleveland what MVP basketball looks like. So let's talk about it. The Cavaliers visiting the Thunder. It's a heavyweight clash. Like you said, 9-1. Both teams are 9-1 over their last 10. So we can't say somebody's O has to go. We can say somebody's one has to run. I don't know. It sounded good at the moment. But listen, Thunder, they're slight favorites. Probably because they're the home team. -148 and the Cavs +120. That spread is paper thin at 2.5 points, or at least it was when I looked. The over-under sitting at 232. So this one feels like it's going to be a shootout. Now, Cleveland brings some elite defense and some top offense, but OKC's pace and SGA's dominance, this one is going to lean Thunder for me. I'm taking OKC on the money line, and I'm favoring the over of 232. Now, you asked me about a prop earlier, and no. Short answer, no. Long answer, no. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over on points. We gave him a grade of 17, but this matchup is risky. Okay, if you're feeling confident in SGA's form, lean toward the over on the scoring. So that's the play. I'm leaning Thunder on the money line, over on the total, and SGA on over points if you trust this matchup. So what's your take, Daddy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button. Do all the things that Christian wants to tell you to do. I want to know what you think, Christian. What's going to happen?
SGA had 31 points across 38 minutes the last time they faced off. So if you're thinking 17.5 for the over/under, yeah, I'd slam that. No chance.
No. Sorry, that was a grade of 17.
Oh, a grade.
That's our grading scale. Yeah. His over points is probably going to be. Well, you know what? Let's look. Let's walk our way through
17 was a breeze, man.
The odds on that would be like -10,000. Listen, he averages 31.4 points. Okay, and I'm going to play this over up to 34.5. If it gets as high as 34.5, I'm slamming it. It's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 32.5. 33.5, but I will play it as high as 34.5.
I like that. Actually. If under 17-2 at home, Shai plays really good at home. I'm curious and I'm nervous for the OKC money line only for this thing. And I know you're leaning this way, but this is my only consideration for caution, Billy.
Mm-hmm.
They're dealing with some injuries, especially on the big man front. They've been dealing with Chet Holmgren. He's been out for a long time, since November 10th. But now Isaiah Hartenstein is also out. He's going to be out for at least a week with a calf strain. To me, that might impact the rebounding issues for OKC, which could hurt some second chance points, which could hurt the whole pace of play against one of the toughest teams in basketball in the Cavaliers. So that's the only reason I'm a little cautious on the money line, but I'm still with you. I'm still leaning that way, but just something to keep in mind for this one on Thursday night.
For sure. The spread being 2.5, it may as well be a pick 'em.
I'm with you. All right. Well, let's talk about a team that has really been up and down all season long. They got up to the 5th in the Eastern Conference at one point. Now they're starting to slide down again after a horrendous start, Billy. That's the Indiana Pacers. They're taking on the Detroit Pistons. Well, the Pacers on a 6-game winning streak. That was just recently snapped. They had a winning streak. It was snapped on Tuesday by those Cavaliers that we just talked about, but they still have a 4-game road winning streak as they head to Motor City to take on the Pistons. Halliburton did not play on Tuesday. So in that case, Pascal Siakam led the team with 23 points, 7 rebounds. Pacers are 7-3 in their last 10 games, averaging about 117 points per game. Both Halliburton and Nesmith are game time decisions. Cool thing about Nesmith, he hasn't played since November 1st, and he could be playing finally tonight. Detroit, I'm excited to see Cade Cunningham, man. I think he's a star in the making. I am absolutely ecstatic. He better be an all-star. He better be the first Detroit Piston all-star, I think, since Ben Wallace. I think it's actually Blake Griffin. But regardless, it's been a very long time since the Pistons have had an all-star. Take me through this one. Where are you leaning between the Pacers and the Pistons?
I'll tell you right now, Andrew Nembhard is going to be dropping dimes like a DJ at the club. Okay, Detroit's defense isn't ready. We can get into that. So the Pacers are heading to Detroit. Okay, Detroit's got the home field advantage here. It's going to be a tight matchup, though. Thin money line, thin spread, kind of paltry over-under, but Detroit's money line is sitting at -142. Indiana plus 120 dogs. And that spread, again, 2.5 points. May as well not even be there. Over-under 225.5. That feels like a grinded-out game to me. So Detroit, they've been solid defensively, but Indiana's pace and their offensive efficiency makes them dangerous. They're not out of any game. So I am leaning towards Detroit to win, but the spread in total, they don't really scream value to me. So the real plays in the props. All right. And my best play of the night for props is going to be the over on assists. And you know what? We can find that threshold right now. But I'm talking about Andrew Nembhard. He is poised to rack up dimes against the struggling backcourt from Detroit. And you know, just so, where's he starting at? Let's look at Nembhard. You know, it shouldn't be a crazy number for him because it's not like he's not the most volatile guy. But if we're looking at assists, this guy averages 5 assists per game. And his upper threshold is going to be 5.5. And I'm willing to bet. that they're going to start out at 4.5 assists. And I will slam the over on that so fast when I see it. That's, to me, that is an absolute given. 4.5 assists. We should look at his game log, but it's probably going to start, if his average is 5, it's going to start probably around 4.5. And because of the thin spread, they might move that up to 5.5 during the course of the day. That's just how the lines kind of work. But with that thin of a spread, he's going to get a lot of minutes. He averages in the neighborhood of he averages like 28 minutes a game, and he's looking like he might have a bit of an uptick because, you know, the injuries we talked about. But man, this is a prime spot for me. I'm playing it as high as 5.5. But if it's at 4.5 where I think it's going to be, I'm slamming it.
I love it. I'm still excited for Cade Cunningham. I know that we really focus on the Pacers here, but he had 24 in his last game against the Pacers earlier this season and averaging 24.5 all season long. I know you haven't put any props in for Cade Cunningham, but man, how can you not be excited for this guy? 32 points he scored in 4 of his last 6 games. 32 points or more, I should say, in 4 of his last 6 games. This guy is an absolute treat. If we get Halliburton playing against Cade Cunningham, those are one of the most electric basketball players in the league going at it. I'm curious to see if we'll get him at least 100%. So maybe we'll get Halliburton 100%. Maybe we won't even get him at all, but I'm curious to see if we'll get that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm looking at projected minutes right now on multiple sites, and Halliburton's nowhere to be found. He is technically listed as a game time decision on the injury report, but he has no projected minutes. So it's looking like the inside fellas are saying he's probably not going to be available.
Yeah, and then we'll find out what happens at Nesmith. But if it's his first game back since November, I'm doubting it's going to be any type of super productive minutes if he does get that type of play. We'll see. Let us know in the comment description below. What do you think about this game? Because it's going to be a fun one. I want to see what the Pacers can do. After starting dreadful, getting all the way up to the 5th seed, I know they fell back a little bit. This can be a team that I think once February 6th rolls around and the trade deadline hits, they could make an impactful trade that really changes the whole landscape of the Eastern Conference. So these games mean a lot. And the Pistons, I mean, they're not a team that's just going to be selling anymore. I think we've seen them change their whole landscape just with some of these young players like a Cade Cunningham as well. Well, let's not talk about young players. Let's talk about some old players. Now, let's move on to them. That's the Phoenix Suns. And I hate to say that because we've kind of grown watching guys like Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal do their thing, but that's just where we are in the world. They're taking on the struggling Washington Wizards in this matchup. And I think struggling is probably a very nice word to say because it's been pretty dreadful. 6-32 on the season. They're on a 7-game losing streak, Billy. 5-17 at home. They're taking on the Phoenix Suns, and they've only won 1 of their last 10 games. Meanwhile, the Suns are looking to get back to 500 after losing the game just the other day, falling to 19-20. 4-6 in their last 10. They could really use a statement win against the Washington Wizards. Durant's averaging almost 28 points a game, but to me, I think the interesting sign here will be Bradley Beal. He's a game-time decision, but he's really found his groove off the bench over these last couple games, and it's almost like a new role for him, which is exciting. Now, he's the most expensive role player, most expensive bench player in probably NBA history. Regardless of the case, it's been really exciting to see him kind of resurge in Phoenix. But we'll see if he actually plays because he's a game-time decision. What are you thinking of this game?
Again, I don't have Bradley Beal listed on any projected minutes. It's way too early in the day, though. I mean, I guess that should be the sign for us to talk about it. Listen, it's early morning. The rooster's not even up yet. So this is we're talking about where we're leaning. Okay, we have to watch injury reports. We have to watch early calls on scratches. We have to watch the lines move, and we most importantly have to see what the final decisions are on these starting lineups and rotations.
You know what's the best way to do this? If you're help be a part of the community, if you're listening and you see some new news while this is running and you're listening and you see something, let us know in the comment description below. Let the other viewers see it in the comment description. If you are not sure and you hear something, check the comments. Maybe something's there. And if we hear something, we'll also post it in the comments. It's something to keep in mind.
These are the facts. These are the facts. And you're right. You said that the Wizards are struggling. But no, struggling is what I was doing an hour ago when I got out of bed. Struggling is what happens to me on Thursdays before Friday's payday. Okay. If that's struggling, I don't want to know what the Wizards are doing right now. But I'm gonna tell you why I love Devin Booker in this spot. Okay.
I didn't even bring him up. I'm glad you did.
Well, he's about to drop some dimes too, like a bad waiter at Hooters. Okay. Washington's defense is not going to even see it coming. So the Phoenix Suns being hosted by the Wizards, I don't care where they play. They can play on the moon for all I care. All right. This is going to be a scoring fest. The Suns are massive favorites, minus 520, with Washington at plus 390. The spread is sitting at 10.5 points. Okay. The over-under at 233.5. And I am leaning towards the over right here. Washington's defense has been atrocious. They've given up 130 points, Christian, over the last 3 games. 130 points per game.
Ouch, man.
On average. That means they gave up more than that 1 or 2 of those nights. Okay. But with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker leading the way, Phoenix should have no problem exploiting them. I'm going to be cautious with the spread. It's wide, but the over feels like a safe play. Okay. So the standout prop for me is Devin Booker, but it's not going to be where you think it is. It's not going to be on points. It's not even going to be Kevin Durant on points. It's going to be Devin Booker on assists. I've got him graded very highly. He's got a very favorable matchup against a chaotic Wizards defense. Booker's playmaking is in a prime spot to shine here. And we can actually look and see what those thresholds are looking like for his assists. Now he he averages in the neighborhood of, damn near 7 assists per game. So that threshold is going to be closer to 7.5. That over threshold is going to be 7.5. I will play it as high as 7.5. I don't see it going as low as 6.5. Just with the only thing that scares me about a game like this is that spread. Okay, if they get too far too fast, they're going to end up sitting that fourth quarter. But I feel like this is the game where Devin Booker is going to facilitate. And listen, he's there aren't many players on. He is the primary facilitator for this team. I'm looking through. There's not another player who gets dimes at a higher rate than he does on this team. And this is a good matchup for him to do it. So that's what I'm rolling with. He is, what did we just say? 6.5?
Mm-hmm.
No. 7.5.
7.5.
I'll play it up to 7.5. I like that. This is a spot to shine for him. So that's where I'm landing. I'm leaning over 233.5, and I like Booker to hit the over on assists. What do you think, my man?
And this is probably the last game the Suns are going to have without the new center they just grabbed. They just went for a trade yesterday, picked up Nick Richards in a trade with the Hornets. They moved some second-round picks to make that happen. And Josh Okogie, I think, was also involved in that. But he's going to be taking on, battling for a starting center role with, going against guys like Nurkic, which I think is a really big thing for the Suns moving forward. If you can find a way to get to 500 before you chance, because I don't think we're going to see him in this game. I don't think that's happening. I think it's too close of a trade to get ready. I mean, I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked, but I don't see that happening. But if you can get the 500 and then add that, I think what's a very underrated piece in the center game for the rest of the season, I'd be really excited to see what happens there. But regardless, I'm with you. I think the Suns absolutely need a statement win. And what a better time to do it than against the Washington Wizards. This is like the perfect time for them to have them on their schedule, right? Yeah. Speaking of a punching bag, I'm glad you brought that up, Billy. Did you watch the Los Angeles Clippers last night against those Brooklyn Nets? At one point in time, I looked at the score. I think they were up by 60. It was insane. In the third quarter, I looked and they were on a 29-3 run to begin the half. Brooklyn got just killed in the game. And what a perfect time for the Los Angeles Clippers to have a back-to-back when your first game, you can rest your starters and play your entire bench for multiple minutes. Kawhi Leonard only had 24 minutes in the entire game, if I remember correctly, and he still had 23 points. Norman Powell, I think, only had 22 minutes, and he still found a way to get 18 points. Speaking of Norman Powell, I want to get this over to you, but I think he is the most, if not the most, one of the most underrated players all season across the entire league this year. What he has done for this team, stepping up after moving on from Paul George, has just been absolutely incredible. I think he matches so well with James Harden, which isn't the easiest thing to do, by the way. We've noticed that over quite some time and over multiple teams. I think Norman Powell does a very good job doing that. I'm really excited to see him in this game against the Blazers. Now, they just host the Nets at home. They make that drive up to the Moda Center to take on the Trailblazers. And the Trailblazers are also dealing with multiple injuries, like we mentioned with OKC a few moments ago, especially with their big guys, right? Robert Williams, Jeremiah Grant ruled out for this one. Also, Donovan Clingan, and as well as Matisse Thybulle are not expected to be back until sometime next week. Me personally, this is where I lean. Look at me putting in a possibility of a lean. I think DeAndre Ayton gets at least 10 rebounds. I think that's like an easiest lean of the world because of all this. I think at least 10 rebounds is where I'm going with Ayton. What are you thinking?
Well, let me just say something about Norman Powell. In Kawhi's absence, I'm sorry, in Kawhi's absence,
Yeah.
Norman Powell's become their primary scorer.
Primary score. Yeah.
Okay, he was once upon a time he was like a Sweet Lou type player. He was just
Mhm.
your sixth man, and he did well off the bench, but now he's become the number one guy in the number one guy's absence. So what happens as Kawhi is now coming back and he's getting settled with the team still probably. I don't know. Does he cool him down? I don't think he does. Norman Powell is nobody's fool, and he's here. He means business, and I'm more than happy to put a prop on him. Not today, but I'm more than happy to do it. I'm gonna tell you something, and I'm gonna tell you why James Harden's assist prop has my attention. It's because when the beard gets in his playmaking bag, something special is about to happen. So let's talk about it. The Clippers going to Portland, take on the Blazers, in what I believe could be a surprising battle. All right, the Clips are pretty decent favorites at minus 165. After a night like tonight, maybe that balloons up. Or after a night like last night, that maybe that balloons up. The Blazers at plus 135 underdogs. The spread is only 3.5 points. The over-under is at 224, and that's where this matchup gets interesting. The Clippers are still finding their rhythm with Harden in the mix. He's been around, but he kind of looks out of place to me. And maybe it's just from seeing him in so many different uniforms over the last 3 seasons. But the Blazers being a scrappy team, they've struggled against more organized offenses. So I am leaning towards the Clippers on the money line at minus 165, and I'm favoring them to cover the 3.5-point spread. For the total, 224.5 feels a little bit high for these teams. I think this was going to be a slower paced matchup, especially on the second night of the back-to-back. No matter how well they were able to play against Brooklyn, I still lean under 224.5. Now, as far as that standout prop goes, it is James Harden. It is an over on assists. It reflects some solid confidence, but the matchup is marked kind of risky. But it was marked risky on an even playing field. Coming off a rested night at the same night you get a W against Brooklyn, it's going from risky to more like a favor over. So if you trust Harden enough to control the pace and find his teammates in transition, and the over under is still around the 5 mark, listen, the over on assist is worth a very major look.
Yeah.
If they start getting crazy and open at 6.5 or higher, I like him stay under that. But if it opens at 5, like I think it's going to, 4.5, 5.5, I like to hit that over.
He had 11 assists last night against Brooklyn Nets. I know obviously it was a huge blowout win for him, but he went 11 assists. He had 21 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds. And check this stat out. This is a fun one too. Out of the entire starting 5 for the Los Angeles Clippers, Harden had the worst plus-minus point differential. You know what he was at? Plus 36, and he was the worst of the starting 5 for that team. Insane. Hey, I think I even like it if it's closer to 6 on the assist line. If you had 5.5, I would even, I think you can get to 6, 7 assists comfortably in this one, Billy, but I'm with you. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think the Clippers, this is one of those fun moments, right? You blow out a team and then the next day you go in, and we've seen this happen multiple times where you blow out a team by 60 and then you lose the next game of a team that you should have won and you lost by 3. Like we've seen that happen so many times in the regular season throughout the years. Now I'm not saying that's going to happen, but don't just expect them to win by 60 against the Trailblazers, although they're not the best team in the world, just because they did it with the Nets the night before. So just keep that in mind. But and especially, just because Harden had 11 assists doesn't mean we should be playing over 9.5 the next game either. So I like that. I like the over 5.5. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, completely different matchup. Brooklyn defends point guards pretty decently. However, when you take away the scoring ability, what does the point guard have to do? He has to distribute. He has to facilitate. And so they allow the facilitation of assists a little bit higher than Portland does. And so that's why I'm kind of leaning a little bit closer to his regular averages. Brooklyn's just not a good team. Portland's not a great team, but they're a decent team, right? And again, just a different monster. But I really do like that over under of what I say 6.5. That's the max.
5.5,
If it goes over
6.5,
6.5, we're cutting it. But anything below that, I like the over.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. That's good. And I'm with you on Portland. I think they're a much better team than the Nets for sure. I think Portland's on the right path. I think they're finally on the right path after the move. I think they have the right people in charge for that one. I've said that a few times already on these shows. All right, let's put a wrap on this show here and let's talk about another back-to-back. The Houston Rockets had a back-to-back. They'll be playing for the second night in a row after defeating the Denver Nuggets last night, 128-108. They had a 20-point victory, but we should put a caveat on that, Billy. And why is that? Because Denver Nuggets was without Jokic in that matchup, but they still won by 20. That's something to keep in mind. The Rockets are a great team, and they deserve all the credit because they are playing very well, and they have multiple players that can do it. Last night, Jalen Green was the dude, 34 points. The team overall shot 52% from the field. It was incredible what they did in this one. On the flip side, the Kings are still looking for their new identity after firing Mike Brown. I think they're on the right step forward, but we're getting close to the trade deadline, and there are rumors galore. Malik Monk is currently a game-time decision with a groin. He's listed as probable. We'll see if that actually means he plays, but if it's a groin injury and he's not, you can assume he's probably not going to be 100%. So I assume there's some sort of minute restriction, Billy. We'll see what your numbers say. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. Where do you lean, Rockets and Kings?
Well, at this point in time, Malik Monk, he's projected at 33 minutes. And
interesting.
If they're thinking he's in, well, we can only assume he's in until they say he's not, right? But tonight's story for me is going to be about Domantas Sabonis. And it might not be in the direction that you might think. Okay, he might be a double-double machine, but tonight, I believe Houston's defense is going to shut him down. He's going to not be up to his usual dominance on the boards, and we're going to talk about it right now. And this game is going to be about tempo. Okay, the Kings are slight favorites, very slight favorites, minus 142. And that's what I like about this slate tonight. A lot of very slight favorites, a lot of pencil-thin spreads, a lot of pencil-thin money lines, and over-unders that aren't egregiously crazy. I think this is a very predictable slate. And I don't want to say that because, you're going to have somebody, hey, you were wrong about 45% of your leans. Well,
it's inevitable.
That's gambling, right? That is what gambling is. That is the operative function of gambling, not knowing, but thinking you do anyway. So the Kings being slight favorites at minus 142 with Houston plus 120. Spreads at 2.5 points. That's a recurring theme. 2.5 point spreads. The over under at 227.5. And it's anyone's guess which team is going to set the pace on this one. Both fast-paced teams, but Sacramento's offense ranks among the league's best. But Houston, they've stepped up defensively, especially when it comes to rebounding and interior play. And that's where Sabonis comes in. I am leaning towards the Kings on the money line, but the total, I'm going to leave it alone. Unless you've got a strong lean one way or the other, I'm not with it. But that prop is Domantas Sabonis, and I'm taking him under on rebounds. So I think it's a very strong play with a favor under. And Houston's improved defense rebounding could limit his usual production on the glass, making the under the smarter bet for me. And if we look at Sabonis's averages, I want to see how low we can go on this. He averages 14.1 rebounds per game, 14 rebounds on average. Those are Andre Drummond prime numbers. Okay, that is very strong.
What a name drop. I love it.
You like that? I like a Andre.
What's he doing
Drummond.
now? He's not.
He's around. He's around. He's probably getting 15. He's probably getting Boban minutes somewhere. But you know what? I'm going to play this thing as low as 12.5. I do think that 12.5 is probably a reasonable over/under for Sabonis tonight.
You still thinking he's breaking double digits?
He's a double machine. He's going to get his points.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, unless I am mistaken, and he is not the primary scorer, but he will easily get you 10 points. He is surprisingly, not only the primary rebounder, but he's also the primary facilitator in tonight's lineup as it stands. So, if he's unable to score, if he's unable to get the boards, he may go crazy with with dimes. That might be something to look at. It's not something I really considered until just now. But what I really like is the under on rebounds. And if they set his over under at 14 and a half, I'm slamming the under. I'm slamming it hard.
Had 10 rebounds in the loss against Milwaukee on Tuesday, but just to put in perspective, when I asked if he's going to get 10, you might as well bank he's going to get 10. The last time he didn't get 10, hear this one, though. Interesting stat, was 7 on December 3rd. Do you know who that was against, Billy?
Could it have been against Houston?
The Houston Rockets. Yep, 32 minutes, only had 7 rebounds in that game. Did still score 27. So if there's a team that can limit his rebounds, well, according to the latest trends and historically this season, it's the Houston Rockets. That just gives you a nice idea of what the slasher can do for you. Let us know in the comment description below what you're thinking about this game and what do you think about the entire slate on Thursday night. We'll have you here covered on Slasher Sports, on the YouTube channel, and across our socials. Go ahead and hit that follow button, the subscribe. If you want to find us on social media, you can scan that QR code up in the corner. All that good stuff. We got you covered here. But until then, we'll see you back here with another episode of Full Court Slash next time. Take care.